The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame, with exciting Vol sports prints now available.
This is The Sports Source, presented by Bill Hotz and Associates, and by Renewal by Andersen, with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Sports Source. We appreciate you being with us today. The Sports Source presented by Bill Hotz and Associates, and you saw Renewal by Andersen that open as well. Shows like today, these are the days when you really need to be thinking about the folks who bring you this show each and every week. We got a good one today. UT Athletics Director John Currie is with us. So with that in mind, why don't we dive right into this thing, our first segment of today's show, brought to you by, of course, Bill Hotz and Associates. Folks, if you've been injured in a car wreck, turn to the team that best knows the law and best knows your rights. They've been doing it for 3 decades plus. We thank Bill Hotz and Associates for making today's show possible for you. And here's why it's a special show. I want to welcome in the University of Tennessee Vice Chancellor and Director of Intercollegiate Athletics. It's a long title, John Currie. John, thanks for being with us.
It's delightful to be with you.
Appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Just so folks out there know how we're going to handle this, first part of the show will kind of be one-on-one, longer answers as we go. They're going to be more rapid fire. We've got 5 other panelists from our normal shows that will be here to fire those questions at you. I don't want to spend a lot of time covering questions that you've been asked over and over and over again. I know you're not going to give me a number on Butch Jones and job status and that kind of thing, so I'm not going to start there. I'm going to start a little bit differently. I don't know if you saw this. Thought this was interesting. Colin Cowherd, the national radio host, had something to say about Butch Jones this week. He says Butch Jones has the hottest seat in America. They play Georgia Tech in Florida the first 3 weeks. He loses 1, he could be fired. 2, he's done. He'll be fired by week 3. John, I said I'm not going to ask you about wins and losses. I'm just going to ask you, why are you leaking this in-depth information to Colin Cowherd? I mean, come on. What do you think? It is a hot topic right now. Nationally, people are debating Butch Jones' job status. Locally, you've got some in the fan base. I think it's a loud minority, but you get some who want to change. You got some of the local media who are asking about it. What do you think about all the speculation about your head coach?
Well, I think that I would defer to our Hall of Fame head coach who lives in town, Philip Fulmer. He had some great, very descriptive comments that maybe a sitting athletics director can't make last week about that kind of talk. It's really quite silly.
He did say it was silly.
And I think it's really reflective of the momentum that Coach Jones and his staff have established, especially from a recruiting standpoint. I think it's making people around the country a little nervous as to how well we're doing. So I'm really excited about this season, but more importantly, I'm excited about what I've seen of how Butch Jones has developed the foundation of a long and successful and sustainable high-level program.
Okay, and he is recruiting well, so it's not. No one can come back and say that his status is impacting recruiting. He's got the top class in the conference right now, one of the top 5 or 6 in the country. But you had an opportunity to kill all this talk altogether if you had given him a contract extension. That never came about this summer. What was the thinking in not going down that road right now?
Well, as you and I have talked about previously, we're not going to get into a conversation of talking about individual contract discussions and contract negotiations with any of our coaches. You know, we're in an environment, as Coach Dickey always used to say, the wind blows hard at the top of the flagpole. So whether somebody's got a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, 20-year contract, there's always going to be somebody who thinks it's too short or too long. So we're not going to worry about that kind of public talk right now. We're focused on the fundamentals of our program, and I can tell you how excited I am and how impressed I am by the discipline and the organization that I see Coach Jones and his staff building. I had a great time being out on the practice field for a little while yesterday and watching the competitive spirit of our squad. Incidentally, it was like the greatest August day of practice from a weather standpoint in the history of the university, probably. And I'm really excited about our future with Coach Jones as our leader.
Okay. You don't want to get into the future. Fans are always living in the future, and because of that, we in the media are always asking about the future. But dealing in the future with Coach Jones, you won't be dealing with Trace Armstrong as his agent anymore. It's going to be Jimmy Sexton. A lot of people look at that and they say that Butch Jones and Trace Armstrong had approached you about an extension. One didn't come, and now all of a sudden there's a change at the agent level. That's the view from the outside. What are your thoughts on the moneymaker? I mean, he makes it rain. Jimmy Sexton is the go-to agent in the country, and now your head coach has him as his representative.
Well, again, that's Coach Jones' business, but I do have a long-standing relationship with Jimmy, and then his partner, relatively new partner, is a fellow named Clint Dowdle, who was actually a graduate assistant and then an operations director here at Tennessee. And actually, Clint was a member of my staff at Kansas State. I hired Clint in Kansas State in 2013 or 14, and he spent 3 or 4 years with me and did a great job. So we have a close relationship of trust, and I'm sure when the time comes, we'll be on the same page.
Any concerns that Butch Jones has a great year and somebody comes running and he says, you guys could have taken care of me beforehand?
Hey, there's 2 kinds of people in this world. Ones that everybody wants and ones that everybody wants to get rid of. And I'd much rather have folks that everybody wants.
All right, makes sense. You're probably not going to bite on this one. I'm pushing. I can't get you. But let's look at it this way. First-year athletic director. Mm-hmm. In my head, if I were you, I would be thinking, let's give my coaches as much room to thrive as I possibly can. I've been a manager who's taken over a couple of departments and television stations, and you don't walk in saying, yeah, when I get there, he's gone, she's gone, they're gone. You just don't do that. You want everything to succeed. But in your situation, you have seen firsthand with Mike Hamilton, Phillip Fulmer's on the hot seat. Mike Hamilton, you were involved in that situation, and it's great, by the way, to see how you and Phillip Fulmer are now kind of on the same team. You saw firsthand that once that didn't work out, once Mike made the change and the Lane Kiffin thing spun out, all of a sudden the heat shifted to Mike Hamilton at Kansas State. You were there with Frank Martin, and I'll say this to begin with. I don't know what happened there. From the looks of Frank Martin, I don't know how well I'd get along with Frank Martin, but something went wrong there. He decided to leave. You had some Kansas State fans that got upset with you. As an AD in his first year, does that weigh at all in your mind that if I make any kind of change here, it goes from somebody else on the hot seat to me starting my own clock, if you will?
Well, I think all those things are great examples of the reality for athletic directors is ADs are never celebrated, they're only tolerated.
That's true,
right?
Yeah.
And so what we've got to be doing is ensuring that we have our focus on our student athletes and student athlete services and protecting the integrity of the experience for our student athletes, and then providing our coaches and staff with the resources that they need to be successful. And then last but not least, ensuring that we can continue to go forward from a competitive standpoint and represent the university the right way. So I'm going to have my focus on those things. Anyone who thinks that ADs come in looking to make a bunch of changes for the sake of making changes is either very foolish or has never managed anything. We have a lot of things going for us right at the University of Tennessee, and then we got some areas where we got to tweak a little bit and make things better, and one of those is winning across the board. We haven't won as much as we would like to win over the last number of years, so we'll continue to assess the ways that organizationally we need to be supporting our coaches and student athletes more effectively towards those ends, and also making sure that we're overall are in line with the overall goals of our university.
Okay, very good. I tell you what, like I say, we've got a lot more to cover with John Currie. We appreciate him being with us today. We are going to get into the Lady Vol stuff. I've been emailed 1,000 times, Twitter, you got it. We're going to ask. We'll see how professionally he dances around it. He did pretty good in this first segment. When we come back, though, I'm going to ask him specifically, Butch Jones has some disconnect in terms of communication with some fans. What can an AD do, if anything, to help his coach communicate? Come on back.